welcome to the show. Jeremy, we are here with Jeremy Locke. He is a former Green Beret in the Army. He is involved now with aerial recovery that he has co-founded, and just someone we are very honored to be sitting here with. And you've got many stories and have served this country in various capacities and continue to do so today. So welcome to the show. And do you want to give a brief intro of your background and kind of what you've done up to this point today?
Yeah, well, thanks a lot for having me on here, and I appreciate. I got on my shirt here, like Force for Good. It's kind of my family motto.
Nice.
With my wife and I, and I appreciate that you guys have a Force for Good business and giving back to those that serve others. So I really appreciate that, guys, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of mentioned it. I was in the Army for 20 years. I joined right before September 11th, so that was a nice little surprise when I was washing dishes on kitchen patrol and basic training on September 11th. But, I ended up staying in. So I did 20 years in the Army. I did about 10 of that in the Special Forces as a Green Beret out of 5th Special Forces Group at Fort Campbell. I retired there in 2021. Got about 5 years combat experience under my belt. Seen a lot of things in the Army, some of them good, some of them bad, and I've had a lot of different things manifest as I am now, right, based on that stuff and things that happened to me in my childhood too. And that's really what we do now at Aerial Recovery. If you take a look at this organization, we're a nonprofit out of Nashville, Tennessee. My wife and I co-founded it, and it really is about rescue. We first rescue the rescuers with our Heal the Heroes program, and that's a year-long program designed to help struggling veterans, first responders, get them back on mission and purpose. And these are guys and gals with anxiety, depression, suicide attempts, substance abuse, all that stuff. And we're trying to really remind them that you guys are warriors, right? Like, that disease you're feeling is because you're supposed to be doing something, and all those skills that you learn, in my opinion, that's God's preparation for what you really got to do now, your real calling. And we take them and blend them in with some other folks we got too, and we deploy out and we do natural and man-made disaster relief, everything from hurricanes, volcanic eruptions we responded to things like the troop withdrawal in Afghanistan and the current war in Ukraine. So we're helping out there. And then our really big piece of the pie is anti-human trafficking. This is something that my wife has been very passionate about since she was 12 years old and saw a victim while she was on a mission trip. And myself, I've seen a lot of things in the military, but I hadn't really seen evil until I started getting into the human trafficking space and combating that. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what we're doing. I know it's a lot, but there's a lot of problems in this world, man. And like, I really firmly believe that, there are people that were designed to help those in need, and that's who we're trying to recruit at Aerial Recovery to then go out and help people.
We love it. Yeah, you're involved in a lot of things, which is really cool, and we're seeing the good that you're doing on social media. And Brandon and I met you and Brittany at an event in New Jersey, and from the beginning, you guys started speaking and telling the story of what you guys are doing and the mission, and we were so drawn to that. And afterwards, we immediately were like, "This is a company we want to get involved with Patriot." I mean, that's our mission, is to help and give back to these people who serve this country. And you guys not only work with veterans, but you're also providing a general humanitarian service across the country and across the world. And it's amazing to see, and something we really wanted to get involved with. So let's dive a little into your story. I want to kind of go back to like growing up, childhood. Were you always wanting to get into the military? Was that a career path you had envisioned, or was that something you stumbled into and were just fell into at a later point?
Yeah, and I've been able to tell my story a lot now, especially recently when I speak at events or talk to, our heroes, as I call them, that come through our program. And that's one thing I tell people. I really encourage you to tell your story, right? There is true strength in vulnerability. Now you got to be smart about it and pay attention to who you're vulnerable around. But I think in the military and law enforcement, that sort of community, like, you're so ingrained in you to not let your weaknesses out. And there's this culture, it's getting a little bit better, but the culture of you're taking a knee on your team if you even talk about mental health problems and all that sort of stuff, right? So that's kind of a big thing that I like to speak on. And we've all had childhoods, and we've all had good and bad things happen in our childhoods. And, for me, only recently I've really been able to talk about like sexual trauma that I had when I was a kid on two separate occasions. I won't go into the full details of it, but being able to kind of really talk about that and understand that when you have endured, physical, mental, sexual abuse when you're younger, you are so much more susceptible as you get older to post-traumatic stress and these issues and these environments that you really find yourself in the military, especially overseas. And when you see these traumatic events, it's just a lot more susceptible to it. And, growing up, I was born in Portland, Oregon, and my parents divorced when I was about 7, and my sister's about 4 years younger than me. And I spent a lot of my time kind of growing up looking out for my sister through various situations, right? And that really built this like kind of guardian sense in me, right? I've always felt like a protector, and that translates forward to kind of what I do now. But when about the time that my parents divorced, my grandparents moved down from Canada. They lived up in British Columbia, and my grandpa is he's 5 years in the Canadian combat engineer, World War II veteran. I think he spent 4.5 years in World War II. And my grandma is Indigenous Canadian, so she was born on a Cree reservation. So I have, my grandpa's an Irish immigrant to Canada, first generation, and then my grandma's a Native American. And they moved down to help out with my sister and I. And, I was exposed to a lot of drinking when I was younger. And, I went through my fair amount of drinking as I got older, but I guess it was in my blood, right? Like I had Indian and Irish, so it's kind of predisposed to it, right? But, it's like all these things kind of shape how you are as you get older. And I got to this point where, I felt like my sister was like kind of good. She's older now, and I was getting out of high school. So it's like, man, I just kind of want to get away. Like I felt so much of my childhood, and I felt like I was making a lot of grown-up decisions and stuff. So I was like, I just kind of want to get away. And I really idolized my grandfather. And that was one of the big reasons why I joined the Army was, one, to just kind of get away and travel. And two was to kind of be like my grandpa, because, he was a super cool guy and real funny with his thick Irish accent, and super, just a tough guy, right? And that's something that really influenced me into joining the Army, which I did in July of 2001.
Cool. So take us through getting into the Army, first deployments. Like what was that like? Was that like, were you excited, and was it what you were thinking it would be? You said growing up you were following in your grandfather's footsteps. Like, was it something you were enjoying and feeling fulfilled by?
Yeah, I think so. I joined on an airborne infantry contract. I was an 11 Bravo when I came in, but I was tall. Well, I'm still kind of tall, a little bit shrunk over a little bit, but it's tall, and I had a good general technical score. So I was recruited in our 30th AG before we go to basic training for what something was called the Honor Guard, and that's the 3rd U.S. Infantry Regiment in Fort Myer, Virginia. If it's still called Fort Myer, I don't know if it's been woken up or not yet, but I don't know the names of any bases anymore because they've all been erased.
Changed. Yeah.
But so I went up to Fort Myer, Virginia, and that was a ceremonial unit, right? You primarily do like the Tune the Unknown Soldier funeral details in Arlington National Cemetery. Your defense is the military district of Washington. So that's where I went there first, and it was pretty cool. Like I was excited to go there. My high school sweetheart at the time, she was going to go to George Washington University, so it was in the area. It kind of made sense, and that was also before I'd signed that before September 11th. So when I got out there, I started working doing funerals primarily, like I mentioned. At the beginning, it is an honor, right, to pay the last respects and listen to the priest or whoever they have over at the chaplain give the final rites and all of that, and just making sure like your flag is 135 like folded perfectly, and you've got the firing squad, they've got their 21 gun salute down, and escorts and step, and you want to make it like as nice as possible. And I did probably 1,000, if not more, funerals. We do 5 a day, And at the beginning, it was like people that were coming back from like they're Korean War veterans, Vietnam veterans, World War II veterans. So these are guys and gals that have lived like a whole life, right? And so I'm presenting a flag to like someone could be my grandma, right? Like, so that seemed kind of normal or natural. And then as you get into 2003, late 2002 and 2003, now you start getting Afghanistan war casualties coming back, Iraq war casualties coming back. And now I'm taking that flag and presenting it. And I still remember like the saying, you say like, "Sir, ma'am, this flag is presented to you on behalf of a grateful nation for the honorable and faithful service rendered by your loved one." And now I'm saying that to like what could be my girlfriend, right? Or my father or mother. So it was like really
personal.
Yeah. And I got the opportunity because the honor guard hadn't deployed since Vietnam. And I don't know if this is true or not, but as the story goes, like the last time they deployed, the only thing that was found was like the guidon, like the whole company got wiped out or something. But I'll be honest with you, the caliber of guys that I had in the honor guard, and I know a bunch of them that ended up becoming Green Berets, because you're at least book smart, right? And tall, and you got to look apart, right? So you're very in shape. So there's a lot of guys that get recruited from the old guard that end up going into special forces. And we deployed out. I had the opportunity to volunteer for the first deployment since Vietnam, and I did that, and it was to the Horn of Africa, and that was in 2003, I believe. And when I went out there, it was cool because like I really believe like God puts these little seeds inside of you, right? Like deep down, and you kind of get to choose like which ones you water and give sunlight to and you let grow. And sometimes we, make the mistake of letting the bad seeds like that are put in there, and maybe that's put in there by the enemy, right? And those are the ones that grow. But when I was there, like I had the opportunity to go out and deploy, and it was a cool mission. Like it was combat, but it wasn't combat, right? Like we didn't really get shot at by anything close or any of that stuff. It wasn't like some of the stuff I experienced as I got in longer. But I was doing basically like security for veterinarians and doctors that were going out and helping local people, right? And it was great. Like I got to interact with the kids out there, help their like farmers with their animals and all that sort of stuff. And the mission was like the people, right? It was focused on the people. And that was that like a little seed that's in me now because I'm humanitarian, right? And I love that, right? So that was a really great experience for me. And I got back from there, I think 2004 sometime. And at this point in my life, like I had my girlfriend and I had broken up, and I started dating people, and another little seed that I had with all the alcohol when I was being raised was like I was never going to drink. That was something that I told myself. I'm never going to drink, going to get married once. I'd seen my mom multiple divorces, and I've seen a lot of bad alcohol stuff in my family.
Yep.
And so I got back from there, and I started dating this girl, and I had a really core group of friends out there. We used to go play basketball and hang out all the time. And one of them, my buddy Ryan, he was kind of in the same situation as me. He was newly dating someone, and we were talking, and I was telling him, man, like we went deployed, but I don't feel like we've deployed, right? Like I'm burying all these people that have come back and died from combat-related injuries, right? I felt this like obligation, right? I wanted to go and actually go to Iraq or go to Afghanistan. Like I felt like I would regret it the rest of my life. It's this like sense of duty, and I think a lot of people are compelled to that. You want to go fight for righteousness or whatever's going on. And, we can talk about, is that actually what you're fighting for when you get over there? But,
right.
But that was like, I was very compelled to do that. And I remember having a conversation with Ryan, and I was like, hey man, I'm feeling like we should go. And he's like, yeah, I've been kind of thinking the same thing. And I really kind of feel like I talked him into it, because you could do this program where you can do like a battle buddy sort of deal, right? So we went to the re-enlistment office, and we both thought Germany would be cool. So we re-enlisted together to go to Germany, and we both were engaged. And then, to go to another country, if you want your family to come with you, got to be married, right? So we both got married pretty quickly. I think I was married after like 5 or 6 months. And when I remember getting our orders, like you get orders before you go to your next duty station, And if you have a family, like it'll be your name and then like your dependents, your wife, kids, whatever. When mine came back, it was just my name. Like my wife wasn't attached to it. And Ryan's came back and his wife was on his, and he was going to Bamberg, Germany, and that's where I was supposed to go to. But I had to recut mine, right? So I could get my wife on there, or my ex-wife, but onto the orders. And when those orders came back, I was like assigned to Smith Barracks. So I'm like at a different city now, and I'm like, well, that kind of defeats the whole purpose of going to Germany, right?
Yeah, the battle buddy
with my
thing.
buddy,
like,
right?
Yeah.
So anyways, I got to do it now. Like I've signed the documents and going out there, and I get out, and I'm there for a few months. Ryan's like kind of ahead of me, like we're all deploying out and all this stuff, and he ends up pushing out to Afghanistan. And I got orders to go to Iraq, just outside Baghdad, near Sadr City. And before you go there's a place called Grafenwehr and Hohenfels. Like it's a training ground in Germany. You do your pre-deployment kind of maneuvers. They're about 30 days long. Make sure you're qualified to go out and fight. And I remember like one morning, man, I was sitting in the mess hall before we got ready for our training for the day. And there's a paper, it's called the Stars and Stripes. And if you open up that paper in the inlet, like the very first 2 pages or so, there's a section called Faces of the Fallen. And those are, service members that have been killed in action or whatever, right? And so I'm like, I look it up and I'm looking through, and sure enough, Ryan's picture's right there, man. And that thing hit me hard because, I immediately start thinking like, dude, I like, how sometimes we jump to these conclusions, like I should have turned left, or if I wasn't 10 minutes later, we wouldn't have gotten this wreck or whatever, like all these things. But I had this like feeling that, and I fought this for the longest time, that like I kind of killed him, right? I killed him.
By not being there?
Well, yeah, not being there, but I talked him into re-enlisting. That's the way I kind of, like he was gonna go home and like.
So where were you guys deploying from Germany?
So
deploying to, sorry.
Yeah, so I was gonna go to Iraq. He was already ahead of me, right? So I'm in training. He's been in Afghanistan for a couple months. And, obviously this is back before you could freaking, talk to anybody at any time, everywhere. Like, thanks, Elon. Like, you could just talk to everybody, right? This is back, like, in the old Skype days and, like, sat phones and all sorts of stuff. So it's a lot more difficult to talk to people. So once he's out doing his thing and I'm out, about to do my thing, like, there's really no communication. And then when you're training and stuff like that, like, we don't have cell phones, and
you can't check in.
No, you can't really check in. People can contact you if they're your family or anything like that. So that, like, I had no idea that had happened. Like, so that's in the paper.
Shock.
Yeah, and it was shocking. And then one of the ways I really wanted to be involved was I wanted to go back and do his funeral, right? A lot of my friends, that core group of friends, they were able to go back there. A lot of them were still at the honor guard, and they requested to be on his funeral detail. And I went and asked my chain of command, if like this is a super important person in my life and he just died, like I would love to go back. And of course I was denied, right? No, you're getting ready to go out. You got to do the training. That was one of those things too, where I was like, regular Army, man, this sucks. There's all these, these rules, like let us go do something for us every once in a while, So I ended up deploying out. But what was interesting about it is, even though I didn't have like the hardest childhood, but I didn't have like the easiest. Like I had some bad stuff happen to me, and I'm sure I've seen it. There's people all over this world that are, like, they're sucking, like half the time, like, and I still struggle with depression and all of that a lot of the time. And I got to remind myself, like, look at the conditions that some of these people live in and their attitudes. Like, they're just like, so grateful for getting one plate of food for the day or something, So I always try to check myself there, but man, I was just really, I was just super conflicted on the feelings I was having. And I started kind of operating at that point, like off of a different, fuel is kind of what I call it. Like, I'm a big proponent of putting positive fuel into your body. I like guys like David Goggins are freaking incredible, right? Like, they can go out and run all day and freaking stay hard, right? Like all that's freaking, that dude's an animal. But like, I don't like to go out and do things for the sake of like proving others wrong or any of that stuff. I'm not saying like that's the way David is, but like, I'm very careful about the type of fuel that I put into my body, right? And at that point, when he was killed, I remember like this sense of, instead of like duty to go out and deploy, it was now like revenge. Like I wanted to go out, and I don't care, like, I'm not even going to the same country. I'm going to Iraq, right? But I don't care, like, those Iraqis, they might as well have killed him, right? So, it's interesting in how you can make those jumps, like guilt, like I felt this guilt, and then I turned that guilt into like anger, right? And then revenge. So you see how that fuel can, like, those emotions can really get you down a wrong road pretty quickly. And, so I deployed out, and things went, it was pretty kinetic when I got out to Iraq. Especially at the beginning of it, there was a time the green zone was getting hit by all these rockets and stuff. It was 2008-ish, and that's when we were out there. So we were literally building this like T-walls, like these giant concrete barriers that, you'd see in the road, the Jersey barriers, but like 30 feet tall. And we were like old school, like basically sieging Sadr City, like this section of the city where the Jaysh al-Mahdi, al-Sadr was their leader. We were basically like trying to contain them. But in building this wall, you would take over these buildings, and then there would be like, there are such things as like armored cranes. Like there's cranes with like armor on them. It's crazy. But they would like pick these barriers up off the trucks and then drop them. And then you'd have one dude like grab a ladder, and then you have to climb up because you have to unhook them, right? And like you'd climb up there, and the combat engineers that were there, they wouldn't even get out of their trucks, right? So we had these like infantry guys that are running up, and then like as soon as you'd reach over to like grab one of the chains, like it would be like bop 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 bop, because you like imagine like this road, like a main road, and then the enemy's on one side and then you're on this side. It's like
they're wide open. Yeah,
it was crazy. So there was a lot of firefights and all that stuff going on there. And
so you guys, real quick, built a wall around the enemy to try to like enclose them.
Literally like siege.
That's amazing.
Like wow. It was like old school, like like someone would be in a fortress and you'd like cut them off.
Yeah,
it was cool. Like the same concept. So you're still doing that right to this day. And I remember this time it was crazy because like we were staying at these little JSSs, like these little tiny bases, or these COPs, like company outposts, and we would have to drive like 3 miles maybe to get to where our current position was. And sometimes it would take us like 12 hours because there were so many of these EFPs, which are these like explosively formed projectiles. They were pretty new at that time. And instead of the normal IED, like they would have this kind of like a copper dome, and it would explode, and then it would like invert and create this like metal, this molten rod, and it could puncture like all of our armor. So it was pretty crazy. So we would take forever to get there, and then you'd be on the ground for 12, 24 hours, and then rotate out and do the same thing over and over and over again. And one of the times I was out with a sniper team, and we were covering those guys, right? Like they're unhooking the things, and so we're up there, and I remember we're sitting on this roof, and we're trying to get a good shot, and we couldn't like get the right angle, right? And these dudes like come up, and like one of them drops his bag, and he's like tattooed, bearded, like, hey, what's up, guys? Like, what are you guys doing up here? We're like, we're trying to, do some covering fire. And he's like, all right, I got you. So he's like, takes us out and like puts this explosive up against the side of the wall, and like, he's like, hey, look that way. And then like, bam, like blows this hole in the wall, right? And I'm like, what the hell is this guy doing? And then he like helps us set up and like checks our rifles and stuff. He's like, all right, guys, see y'all later. And there was a Green Beret, right? It was like this SF team that was out there.
So that was your first introduction to the Green
Beret? Yeah,
it
was the first time, man. I was like, this guy's pretty cool, man. Like, so we go and we do our deployment, and it was like supposed to be 12 months at first. And I remember like the worst feeling, man. You're like at month 10 and a half, and then they tell you you're staying another 3 months. So it ended up being a 15-month deployment, which is super long time to be away, and a super long time for people to wait while you're away too, right? So I get back from that deployment, and and I come back and I find out that there's and I'm not a big talker about exes or anything, but let's just say she didn't want to wait, right? So I get back, and I have that bad news that my marriage is basically over, and I find this out like I was the best man at my buddy's wedding, and that same friend group. And I remember like all these guys were coming up being like, hey, you okay? You okay? And I was like, what do you mean? And
So they knew.
They knew. Everybody knew but me.
Yeah.
So we go through the whole wedding because they didn't want me to like freak out, you know what I'm gonna do? But no, I'm just kidding. But they're like, they didn't want to distract from the wedding, so everybody knew about what was going on, except for me. And then I found out afterwards, and it was devastating, man. It's kind of a funny story. I love kids, dude. Like, kids are the best. Like, kids and old ladies. Like, old ladies are the cool as hell too, man. I love them, dude. They got like the best stories and like so kind and make like good cakes and stuff. So I was out there and all these kids are like dancing at the wedding, and I remember they were doing like the worm with them, and I like busted my chin open and I was bleeding everywhere, right? So I ended up having to like get these like butterfly stitches on my chin. This is at the wedding. Then I go and find out all this crap. And so I'm like, man, so then I'm like, I have to go to the hospital to get my chin stitched up. So like, I'm like processing, my marriage is over, just got back. Like, I'm at my friend's wedding who was part of the friend group with Ryan. Like, this is a lot, man, that was going on. And I'm just in the hospital, like getting my chin stitched up. I was like, dude, this sucks. And, I came to this kind of like, it's crazy because I came to this realization at that point, almost where, like that guilt had turned into anger into revenge. And then that revenge just turned into this like I completely lost myself. Like all these things I said I wouldn't do, I like super heavily drinking, like, cause I remember, I was talking about those little seeds. I remember going back and seeing, members of my family, and, I'm not going to talk exactly who they are, but like, and seeing like, even though they shouldn't be drinking, like they were happy, like when they were drinking at least. And I was like, well, maybe it's something to that. So, and that's how it was. Like, I felt really good drinking, right? And I was good at it. Like, I used to drink all the time, dude. Like, at one point, I was drinking 5 or 6 times a week when I was in between deployments. So pretty much 6 months out, 6 months back, drinking all the time.
Was that part of the culture with your buddies in the military?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And there is something to be said on my part too, because there very much is like this group, there's these groups inside of the military, which are like the good church going, family oriented, like there are those groups there, right? So you can find them. But you have a new cycle of young people coming in all the time. And it's kind of like, college, right? Like you see
you want to fit in with everybody.
College. Yeah, because it's the same age group for the most part, right?
Sure.
At least in the conventional Army, most of them are 18 to 22 that are coming in. When you get to Special Forces, you're a little bit older. I'd say probably 26 to 30 or something when you first get over. And so you've kind of outgrown that. So I just perpetually was like hanging out with the new groups of people that came in. And I really started focusing on just drinking and deploying. And, I got to a point where I had to make a decision. Like, I was going to get out of the Army or I didn't know what I was going to do, or stay in. But I knew, like, I didn't want to, I knew if I stayed in the infantry, like, I was going to get killed. Like, I just felt that way. My grandpa used to always tell me, he didn't ever talk about war. And I understand it now. Like, I always wanted to hear these stories when I was a kid, but he did after I joined the Army, right? That's when he would start telling me about these things in Italy and France and everything that he saw when he was in World War II. And he's a Catholic, really God-fearing man. And, he told me, he's like, and this thing stuck with me too. He said like, I'll do my best Irish accent. He's like, Jeremy, that the hairs on the back of your neck, you get a feeling you get, right? And I was like, yeah. He's like, whatever your next thought is, that's what you need to do, because that's God talking to you, right? So he was very like telling me the stories of, like digging a foxhole and like everything seems normal. And then for some reason, like he would get that feeling and he needed to leave it. So he would leave his foxhole and go build another one. And then the next morning it got shelled.
Wow.
Right. So like, I always took that into account as I move forward in everything I do now.
Yeah.
And
Jason has a very similar story to that, of like he felt something was off that night where his injuries were sustained, and he was just like, he packed his side plates that night, and he said he never wore the side plates on his armor because he wanted to be lighter weight, and just a couple different things he had mentioned that like seems very similar. Just like his gut told him something was off, and he didn't do anything about it that night, and he regrets it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and then in some cases, I don't know his exact story, but like some cases, especially you're like limited to what you can do about it.
Right.
But I do really encourage people that pay attention to that stuff, and I always talk about complacency kills, right? Like if you are getting this feeling, but you don't feel like doing something about it because you're feeling kind of lazy, like just do something about it because you never know, But I had that happen to me a few times, and so I got to this point where I was like, I'm gonna try out for Special Forces, right? And so I did that in 2009 and got selected, and I ended up going through and graduating the end of 2012. And then I was assigned to 5th Special Forces Group and headed out there at the beginning of 2013. And I started on 5233 as like a direct action team in 2nd Battalion, 5th Group. And I spent my whole career in 2nd Battalion out there. I was on 2 different line teams, and I was a B team operations sergeant for a while. And, it was that pattern, though, I was talking about, like training, deploying, back, and drinking. And, I'm very appreciative of the culture nowadays. I remember early on in the 2000s when I was at, right before I'd gone to selection, I was in Fort Benning, Georgia, or whatever it's called now, Fort Benning to me. And we did a welcome home ceremony parade for Vietnam veterans. And it was like 2007 or something, right? So it was crazy to me. Or maybe it was 2009, but like, how many years? Like 3+ decades after that? Like, right. And that's like, and when they would get back, and most of these guys are drafted, right? They would get back and get spat on, and now we're in that culture. I believe it's still kind of holding on of thank you for your service, all that sort of stuff. So I would get that a lot, and it's kind of funny when you're not really like living God's calling or purpose on your life, like. We can kind of choose the compliments or affirmations that come to me. So I'd always listen to people like, oh, Syria, man, that must have been super hard, or Iraq or whatever. And I would be like, yeah, I deserve this time off. So I would go out and do my good 6 months out of the year and then come back. And then the other 6 months I would just do whatever I wanted to do, to be honest.
So your schedule was 6 on, 6 off of, like,
for the most part.
Yeah.
And I had fun. Like I would go out and just, I was just a big drinker and partier at the time. I would still make it to work and do all that stuff. So I never really like considered myself as having a drinking problem. And then, things kind of really changed for me when I got to it was about 2018. So 2018, I had a really amazing, thing happened in my life, and that was when I met my wife now. And I was at this point in my life where I have all these skills. I'm getting closer towards the end of my retirement, or the end of my 20 years where I can retire, but I don't really have any direction. And I was going to do this thing. I was kind of like I had additional skills, and those that know what that is. That was like my career path in the Special Forces, and so a lot of like human network developing, that sort of thing. And I was thinking, like when I get out, I'll go work for an agency or contracting. It's kind of like these like 2 or 3 things that we think we're able to do when we get out of the military, right? Like be a contractor or go work for
tactical training.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a big one.
That's it. That's all we got. That's all we can offer. But there's so much more, right? Like just even being able to be disciplined and in the right place, in the right uniform, the right time, and having like never quit, always get the mission accomplished attitude. Like that's huge in the civilian world, right? Like just to have people that actually like give a crap and aren't just those 9-to-5s. Like they actually care about what you're trying to do.
Well, do you think, I don't want to cut you off there, but in terms of Special Forces, for people that don't know, and I don't know very much about the Green Berets, and you've obviously partnered with Jason, and I know a little bit more about the SEALs, but from your standpoint, do you think being in the Green Berets has allowed you to have more of the humanitarian aspect? Like, I guess part of that job is being able to assimilate with culture, right? And being able to, so being a part of that and being, I guess, deployed into areas where you had to assimilate to various different languages and learn different ways of life, did that have much of the impact besides obviously meeting Brittany and?
Yeah, I think so. Those are some more of those seeds too. And I get that question a lot, like in most common people that don't really know a lot about the military, just kind of like the Navy SEAL or like everybody's SEAL or
Right,
you know,
or
like
you
special
just
operations,
group them
like
all in.
Yeah, it's all like grouped in, you know, like, you know, Air Force, JTACs and stuff like this. They're in the special operations community, but there's technically only one special forces, which is the U.S. Army Green Berets, the only special forces. Everybody else falls into the special operations community. And really it's, as we do too, but it's about your mission set. And I think there's been a lot of kind of mission crossover lately, just with the nature of the warfare, with, you know, trying to stability operations and theater and that sort of stuff. So it is a lot of like cultural knowings and working with indigenous forces. But unconventional warfare is the bread and butter of the Green Beret, right? So we work by, with, and through indigenous and partner force populations to influence something major inside of their country. So, you know, if you always hear like there's no boots on the ground in whatever country, but we've got 500 military advisors, right? Those are Green Berets normally, right? We go in and link up with, you know, trusted or vet potential partners inside of countries behind enemy lines, and we work with them. We'll train them, we'll do missions with them, and then we'll step back and allow them to do missions. So it's like this whole full circle thing, but we're very keen on, we learn about the cultures, we all learn a language in our school. It took me, you know, about 2 years to, I mean, like I kind of brush over and I graduated, you know, but I went through like selection, which is freaking worst 2 weeks of your life. And then once you get selected, then you go back, and I spent about 2 years getting my Green Beret. And, you know, I was a communications sergeant. I did get injured, so it kind of put me back about 3 months. Broke my butt on a jump. You know, like, you're supposed to do like these 5 points of contact. I just landed on my butt, and I was like, oh, that's gonna suck. But you know, but that's kind of like our main mission set. You know, and taking nothing away from SEALs. Like a lot of my buddies are SEALs, and those guys are freaking, dude, they're super good at what they do, which primarily is like direct action. You know, high value targets, like raids, like those sort of things. Those guys are freaking awesome. So we all have our little specialties within, and that's what makes America's military.
How many
so
languages
powerful.
do you know now?
I just know two. I have Arabic and English, and now I'm starting to work on my Spanish for what we're doing now, because we primarily work in Latin American countries. And yeah, so like, you know, I ended up getting into that. I was kind of doing this back and forth sort of thing, and in 2018. You know, and it's kind of, you know, what I do like about the special forces too, which appealed to me, is that, you know, I talked earlier about you being in Africa, and I got to help out those vets and the doctors and stuff, and so it's more about like the population. And when you're working in special forces, you're given like a mission. And what I really like about Green Berets is like we're given a mission and like your commander's guidance, and then you as a team get to like fill in the gaps, right? Like how you're going to accomplish it, and then you brief that back and get the approval on it. So you get to create it. And a lot of it, in order for us to be successful, because we're not on big bases, like we live in team houses, like with our partner force. So we're, you know, I was a point when I was in Syria, and there's like 10 of us working in a base with 500 partner force, you know.
Wow.
And there's ISIS is coming after us, trying to get to, it's like those guys, like our relationships with those guys is what keeps us alive. Like any one of them could turn on us. You hear about green on blue incidents all the time. I've got some good buddies who've been shot up by their partner force.
So there's
right?
a lot of trust involved then when you're with
it's
these
huge.
forces.
So you've got to know, you know, like I don't smoke, but man, when I was out there, I was a smoker, you know, like 'cause they all smoke cigarettes. So now I'm a smoker, you know, and they're really you just really try to conform to them to build trust with them. And spend most of our time, even after training, was just hanging out with them and smoking hookah and you know, building that relationship. Because at the end of the day, like when we go to sleep and we leave 2 guys up on guard, you know, like our 2 guys, like there's 500 of them, and they have the outer perimeter security. Like there's not much we can do if they turn on us, especially.
And that's ingrained from selection. It sounds like I know a little bit about like Robin Sage. Can you like dive into that a little bit? Because that's practicing this, right? Correct?
Yeah.
Like that's like kind of putting this into action, or like a simulated practice.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'd love to hear kind of how that went for you and what that was like.
Yeah, so I think they it's always at the end, I think. They sometimes mix up the order of the qualification course. But for me, the Robin Sage was like the very last culmination exercise. And it's a huge event. Like it's primarily in North Carolina, and there's like however many actors, like hundreds of them. And then there's landowners that will like lend out their land, and you do like a mock mission where you jump out of an airplane, you land somewhere, and you got to go link up with your G chief, and we call them our guerrilla force, right? Those are partner forces. And they take us to their little base, and then we have meetings with them and start training them, and then we go out and do confidence targets. So it's like a whole practice of what it would be like to do an actual insertion. And they're like the scale of the exercises is pretty incredible. Like there's police involved and all sorts of stuff. So it's a super realistic exercise, right? And that's, the best way to train. Like you train as accurately as you can make something to learn the best about it. And, that stuff so that's really what's ingrained in our culture. And I think like, we're called like quiet professionals or soldier diplomats is kind of like some of our nicknames. So, that was, that was like I talked about before about God's, like you give you these skills, and this stuff like super translates over to what I do now, because when we go out and whether it's a disaster or mainly like doing anti-trafficking missions, we don't just like go to other countries and start like finding traffickers.
Yeah.
Like we go to other countries and like meet with their governments and their attorney general of the country and sign a memorandum of understanding with them. And then they connect us to their investigators and prosecutors, but we need to know their cultures and customs and how their laws work. Like some of these countries, the legal age of consent's like 14 years old. And then prostitution is legal in a lot of these countries, but to what extent, right? And where are these women coming from? Or there's a lot of things that you have to learn for each of the countries. So all of that really helped me as I got to doing what I'm doing now. And like going back to 2018, I was kind of, I think I was celebrated by like my family and people around me, but inside of me, like I was kind of like rotting, and I went with a friend of mine. They're a couple, and they were going down to the Mississippi Delta, Greenville, Alabama, and I'm out in Nashville, Tennessee, right? And they asked me if I want to come for the weekend to go hang out down there, and I'm like, nah, and then last minute I decided to go, and so I'm at the Nashville airport, and this is a super funny story, but I'm there, and we're at the gate, and it gets delayed. The flight's delayed like 2 or 3 hours or something crazy. So there's a wheelchair there, and like 2 months prior, I had been traveling as well, like, and I was coming back, and I was on another delayed flight, and I met this dude at like a TGIF in the airport or something, and I was like, hey, what do you do? And he's like, oh, I lease like wheelchairs to hospitals and airports and stuff. I was like, that's kind of a cool job. And I was like, hey, there's wheelchairs over there. Do you know how to do like cool wheelchair tricks? He's like, yeah, of course I do. So he was showing me how to do these like wheelies and stuff on them. So then you like fast forward, a couple months later, and I'm at the Nashville airport with my friends. You
started doing them.
Yeah, and I was like, dude, check this out, right? So I'm like, check out my new super awesome wheelie tricks. So I'm rolling around in this wheelchair, and like I just don't get out of it. And in Nashville, you can drink at the airport, right? So you can go and bring a container and walk around with it at the gate, but it doesn't really matter. And so my friend's fiance goes in and to get us drinks, and then comes out, and when she comes out, she's got Brittany with her, and Brittany's my wife now, and they're walking up, and I remember seeing her. I was like, wow, like she's super beautiful, and so I'm like, I'm still in a wheelchair, right? Like just, not out of necessity, but out of satire. It's like, no offense to anybody in wheelchairs out there, but I'm just like rolling around in this thing, just like it's just just being silly, and she comes up, and my friend introduces, like, hey, this is Jeremy. Like, and of course, his next words are like, he's a Green Beret. And she's like, oh, like a wounded warrior. That's what she's thinking, right? And so it ends up, we're there for another hour and a half. And the whole time I don't get out of the wheelchair. I remember there's like this old woman there named Miss Pearl who was going back. I told you I like old ladies. So I was like sitting next to her, like talking to her for like an hour. And then, they call the boarding, and I just stand up and walk onto the plane. And Brittany's like, what the heck? Like looking at me from a distance. And she ended up, it was like an old school plane, right? Like a retired something or another, but like two of the seats were facing each other. Really tiny puddle jumper. And I sit down, and she sits across from me. And I was like, yeah, like sweet, she's across from me. And we started talking, and it was so interesting, like the different, I don't want to say like levels we were at, because like arguably I'm, one of the most elite soldiers there is in the world, but she was on a completely different level than me, where I was living like doing my good like half of the time, right? I never really met somebody that was like doing good like all of the time. Like it was part of her lifestyle. And her first like question to me is like, why are you on Earth? And I was like, what? Like, what kind of question is that? And I was like, okay. So, I go and give her this super amazing answer. We're married now, so that must have been a good one. And then she's like, well, it must be difficult for you to date. And I'm like, she's like hitting my ego a little bit, but whatever, I can date any girl I want, like just that's kind of the phase of life I was in. And she's like, no, I mean, like you've traveled around and you've seen like difficult and real situations. So you probably have like less patience for like what normal or, people that haven't been exposed to that would feel as big problems. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense. Yeah. Like, I guess I don't have as much patience for that. And so we ended up talking on this plane. It was a short ride. And the funny thing about it was she was actually going down to visit her boyfriend at the time. So, who grew up with my friend that was down there. So they knew each other. So Brittany is like the sweetest woman ever. She's like super innocent and like one of 6 children, born on a farm, like homeschooled, like really sweet, like very Christian. And it was so interesting because like I'm like confident, but I think from some of those things that happened to me when I was younger, like I'm very hesitant on touching, especially like a woman, right? Like I don't like violating space. It's just I don't do it. Like even when I drink a lot, I'm just not like that, right? And for some reason she asked me this question, and like I remember thinking, I was like, I'm gonna grab her hands, right? So I like leaned forward because they're facing each other, and I grabbed her hands. And she's like, you can't hold my hands, I have a boyfriend. I was like, I have to, right? and I was like, I'm gonna hold these hands till she moves her hands away, And so she's sitting there, like hands are getting all sweaty and like shaking and all this stuff. And she finally like pulls her hands away, and it was cool to me though, because like something that's like so out of character for me ended up like coming into play later, because after we got back and like I'd given her my phone number, she like I hadn't heard from her. This is like September of 2018. And then the end of March of 2019, I get a text, and it's like, hey, do you remember me from the airplane? I was like, oh, snap. I knew she couldn't wait, right? Like, what took you so long, right? No, but what was interesting about it was after I went on a couple dates with her, she's like, the reason I messaged you is my ex, like, stopped, she's a very physical touch person, but like would stop withholding physical touch from her. So like would walk in front of her, not hold her hand anymore. And she was with one of her friends. She's like, I just want someone that'll hold my hands. And she's like, you don't hold my hands? Is that dude on the airplane, like super inappropriate, but that guy definitely wants to hold my hand. So that's why she like messaged me. And it was crazy because like she was at a point in her life. And I think it's important to, no matter the status or perceived status of any individual that you may encounter in life, like there's too many people in this world. Like have intentional conversations and go talk to people that you're in the same room with, right? There's a reason like God's putting you in those rooms together, and there's never a stature thing, right? Anybody at any moment or time in their life can add value to another person if you're intentional about it. And when I, met her, I was at a place in my life where I was feeling that uneasiness, didn't know what I was gonna do, right? Like so many soldiers, especially as they're getting ready to transition out of the military, that's my whole identity. Like, what am I doing? Am I going to stay in? Am I going to re-enlist? I was offered like this big senior enlisted bonus, which is like 80 grand or something. It's like $1 million, like to a Green Beret. But I didn't know if that was the right decision. And her, very successful entrepreneur, living what, like, when you step back, like perceived has everything together, like strong, built this, like this empire, this real estate empire. And I didn't know it at the time, but it had like bought an island, like all this crazy, like super accomplishments. And I think there could have been a tendency for me to like hold back, be like, she's kind of out of my league. But what she was at the time was just looking for like someone that generally like cared about her, and she wanted to have fun. Like she spent her whole life from when she was very young, all the way through, high school, her college years, just working multiple jobs because of something that she had seen when she was 12 years old in Costa Rica, a victim of human trafficking. And this little girl had her vocal cords destroyed when she was a toddler from, a sexual assault from her uncle or her father, I think it was. And so that stuck with her, and she's like, I'm going to do something about this, which I really respect, and she was on purpose, on her purpose, right? And her calling from a very young age. So everything she did in life was tailored towards that. But she had reached this point where, she'd been hurt by men in her past, especially, and then was just looking to kind of chill out a little bit. And at that point in my life, when I wasn't 6 months deployed, dude, I was the chill master, right? I had multiple friend groups because not everybody would drink as much as me, but I didn't have a problem because I never drank alone, but I was always out drinking with people, right? So I was really fun and kind of like a party goer. So we just met at this time that we were kind of both searching for something. And it really worked out well when we came together because I needed someone to inspire me. And that's what I love about her is she inspires me without telling me. She helps me figure things out. And I think I'm able to do the same thing for her. You got to do this, or you got to quit drinking, or all these things. She never tells me this stuff, But I started seeing the caliber of people that are around her. And I don't mean they're better people. I just think that they're people that have more along the path that God has for them, and they're working towards what they're supposed to be doing in life. So they're very mission focused, which I can respect as a Green Beret, right? And I'm wow, there's people that are like this, man. That's super cool. And I was really kind of attracted to that, So we ended up getting together and we started dating. And then in 2019, Hurricane Dorian hits the Bahamas, and I was in between deployments from Syria, so I was still very much active at the time. And I talked to her, and I was she was not letting me go take her on dates and stuff. I was gosh, she's busy all the time. So I bought her some Indian food and went to her office in Nashville, and I was hey, I gotta see you. Let me come up. I'll bring you some dinner. So I brought her dinner, and she's in their conference room, and she's whiteboarding, and there's it looks like a mission. I was what's going on here? She's there's a hurricane that's about to hit the Bahamas, and I'm going to go out there and help.
Was this through any group at the time, or?
So this was the predecessor to Aerial Recovery.
Okay.
So at the time, the nonprofit was called Aerial Global Community, and she used to really use that at the time to kind of highlight organizations that were doing good and produce film out there about showing the needs of what's happening. So she was going out there in that capacity, and I, asked her if I could come with her. And she was sure, right? So I got leave, and luckily, no way in hell, if I was conventional, would they let me go on leave to go to a disaster zone right afterwards. But luckily, I was in Special Forces at the time, so they were cool enough to let me go. And I get out there, and I see what I've seen at war, the aftermath of this hurricane, Category 5. It stalled for 24 hours over the Grand Bahamas and Abaco, and it just churned, right? These are 160, 170 mile an hour winds. It's crazy. And the destruction was insane. It was unbelievable. I didn't see anything like it. But what I did see was the same needs of the people. They need shelter, they need food, they need water, they need security, they need medicine. This is the same type of stuff that when we're building infrastructure on the Green Beret side of sort of thing, this is what we do. So now you're building these relationships because you're helping them. And I was man, this is what I do. So that was a real eye-opening time for me, was being out there being my skill sets are transferable outside of something other than just being a contractor. There's some really good that I can do in humanity. Kind of remind me of that deployment, in 2003 when I went to Africa. I was this is really cool. I could definitely get behind this. And I got really excited about it. Came back, and that's kind of when the idea of aerial recovery came about, right? What can we do to, now that Brittany, being an entrepreneur, has the vision and long-term sustainability that an entrepreneur, the way that they think, right? They see a problem, find out why nobody's doing anything about it, or if there are people doing about it, how that can help them, or they solve the problem, right? And there's, that's a great way to not only help people, but to make money. And she's really good at that. And now she can combine that with the on-the-ground operational skills of a special forces soldier in my community. So it was a great partnership there.
Was it just the two of you at the time, or was there a team that she already had?
She had her normal team from her companies. So we used them to help us kind of stand it up. And I remember even being in Syria, working with my team out there, my SF team, helping me kind of design how it would look. And then we were using this. We're very overt now about that we do anti-trafficking, but at the time too, we were we'll go in and do disaster relief work to build the relationships to be able to come back in and do anti-trafficking work, right? So it's about, because they have to trust you. So that was kind of the original genesis of it. But what we've really learned and discovered is these disasters, these are opportunities for human traffickers to prey upon the most vulnerable. And that's exactly what they do. We saw it in Ukraine. We've seen it in, time and time again in Haiti. They just as a humanitarian group will go to deploy to help these orphans. That first earthquake in, I think it was 2010 or 11 in Haiti. I didn't respond to that one, but I responded to the one about 10 years later. But that first one, there was 100,000 orphans created. That's how many people were killed. And there were people going out there and putting signs up saying they're orphanages, and whoever go out there to help, they come and they don't know who they're giving the kids to. They see these kids by themselves, so they go and try to take them to somebody, but they're all just displaced. Yeah, they're displaced, but you're potentially hand delivering them to human traffickers.
Right.
And that stuff is real, man.
There's no vetting.
It happens. Yeah, because they think, and everybody's got a green shirt on, with praying hands or whatever. It's easy to disguise yourself as an NGO.
Sure.
And they'll go hand them off, and that happens everywhere. So really natural disasters, not only do we get to, help people after disaster, but it's also prevention for human trafficking is really the way that we look at it too. And so, started building this thing out, and I got to, and this really leads to our first really thing that we do with Rescuing the Rescues through our Heal the Heroes program. I got to a point where this is what I want to do. I knew it. I knew I wanted to do it. And I think that's really important, especially for people that are struggling, is instead of just focusing just now on your struggle, is well, where do I want to be? Let's have a vision for it, right? Even though I was drinking a lot before I being a Green Beret, I wanted to be a Green Beret. And I used to get up in the morning and look at myself in the mirror and say, you're going to be a Green Beret. You're going to be a Green Beret. Then I'd go on my 5-mile run or whatever it was, right? And I get back, I was saying these affirmations, and I've gotten into this world of successful people. That stuff is real, man. Vision boards, all these positive affirmations, the type of stuff that you put in your system, whether it's on YouTube, movies you watch, books you read, that stuff is real. That's your training manuals to being an impactful person in life. And that's really, that's kind of how I treat it. And when you have a mission, you take stock of where you're at, right? I need to accomplish something. What do I currently have in inventory? What are my skills? What's the equipment I have? And then one of the big ones is what's your threat assessment? So we go by the enemy's most likely course of action, or the enemy's most dangerous course of action, right? So I started applying these same principles to mission planning to my life. And I was all right, well, my mission now is I want to go and build out aerial recovery, and I want to help people after these disasters and human trafficking events, right? So what do I need to do as me to be able to do that, right? If I was in the military, I need to go to airborne school or Green Beret training or whatever it is, right? I have to go to these schools. And so I got to that point where I was well, the enemy's most dangerous course for me is drinking, and I was dude, I got to quit drinking. And I started really looking at it. I'm man, I drink all the time, but when I'm deployed, I don't drink. So I'm able to stop it. But the problem I have with drinking, and I'm not I'm a sober person now, but I understand that alcohol to me isn't it's not bad for everybody, right? There's some people that are very capable of drinking responsibly, and there's very much so. I'm not saying that that's not a thing, but I'm saying for me personally, I actually came to that realization that I'm an alcoholic. Dude, like, nobody drink, like, what am I doing, dude? Like, because once I used to call it contact alcoholism. It's kind of a joke, but it was real. Like, I would drink like one thing and then I can't stop. Like, and the next thing I know, like, I've made the worst decisions I could possibly have made the night before and ruined everything the next day or whatever, right? Like, it's just completely stupid. So I was like, I got to cut that out of my life. And, you know, sounds like a great thing, but I end up, you know, every so often I would drop off the wagon, right? And this is like 2020. And what's super important to this story is that same time in 2020, this is when I thought I had everything all figured back. I was back from my third trip from Syria, aerial recovery. We had like this idea for it. You know, it went through some transformations. Like, we tried to have it as a for-profit arm. Didn't work. So we had to do like the donations and I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go do this, you know, so feeling really good about that, right? So I already had a leg up on most people that are transitioning out of the military because I don't know where the heck they're going to do afterwards. And I was going to do something that was involved my skill set. So like, great, you know, like I don't have to go to freaking college, right? Nothing against college, but I don't want to go to college, man. But so I was really excited about that. And I started going through the retirement process. So I dropped a retirement packet. You can do it, you know, 15 months before you retire. So as soon as I got back from Syria, it was in July of 2020. And then I had a retirement date of July 31st, 2021. And now once you drop the retirement process, you know, that's it. Like, I'm retiring. So they put you through your medical out processing, right? And there's a really great program called Intrepid Spirit, I think is what it's called. And when I was going through, and it's a traumatic brain injury assessment and clinic. So I've going through my records. I've had, you know, a lot of explosions, been involved in IED blasts and all these different things. And I went to this program and they image my brain. I take all these tests and everything. And they sit me down in this room. It's like a whole panel of doctors and psychiatrists, physical therapists. It was like a really great program, right? But you also remember what was in 2020. I'm sure everybody's forgotten now, but that was COVID, right? So, but no, everybody talks about COVID, right? But so I was in there and I meet with everybody. And they go through a plan for me. Like, I have traumatic brain injury, and we want to start you on a plan. And this is also about the time that I'm like trying to quit drinking, and I can do it for a little while. And so they put me on the schedule, and I meet with a psychiatrist, but it's virtual because we're during COVID times. And I meet with her, and it's like once every 2 weeks for an hour on a virtual call. So this is my schedule. First call is like 30 minutes of pleasantries, getting to know each other. In the last 30 minutes, she asked me, like, hey, I want you to tell me a memory about something traumatic that you experienced while you're in the military, but I don't want it one that, like, comes to your mind immediately. I want you to, like, really have to think about it. And I was like, all right. So start, like, you know, accessing these memory banks, that these thoughts that I'd put, like, in this box and, like, buried it way down, like, you know, because I don't want to deal with it. And I remember this time, like, we get this tip that there's been a potential kind of like a genocide, like a mass execution of another ethnic group in Iraq. And some of these are true, some of these are not. Like, these tips we get, it might be like an IED or there's a bomb maker.
So they're like trying to trick you.
Yeah, well, some guys will come in, because we would pay, right? Like, this when I was in the regular Army still, but you would pay money if people came and told us about bad guys doing stuff. So they will literally walk up to our base and tell us things. And then if it ends up like being true, we would give them like whatever it is, $500 or something, right? Which is a lot for them. So someone came and reported that there was this mass execution. So we go out there, we don't know if it's true or not. Like, it didn't really seem like it was going to be. And we're out there with my squad, and I have, like, you know, like my gloves and like a little e-tool, like these short little shovels that bend at the top. And they're like, all right, this is the spot that it's supposed to be. And we're like looking at the dirt, and it looks a little, you know, freshly turned or whatever. Like, oh, it might be some. So we start digging, you know, I'm digging. And then I start smelling. It's like, I know this smell, man, but it's really bad. And I dig up, and then, like, I hit something a little kind of hard but soft, and, like, start unearthing it. And it was like this little hand, like a little 5-year-old or something, little young kid's hand. Sure enough, you know, there's hundreds of bodies, like, that have been mass executed and pushed into a grave and then buried over like World War II style, you know.
All
like,
children?
It was families. So, you know, young and old. And it was terrible, man. Like, and then we had to, this is a huge thing. This is like an international incident. So there's forensic investigators from whatever organizations come out and they're like mapping it with the little things like you'd see on CIS or whatever those shows are. And we had to pull security around it. So I get done like telling her about this thought that I haven't thought about for like a decade or whatever it is at this point, maybe longer than that. And she's like, oh, wow, like, you know, that must have been super difficult. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, okay, well, let's talk about this again. Your time's up. And I was like, oh, crap. All right. So we get off the call and I'm like sitting there like, well, dude, this kind of sucks, right? Like I kind of feel kind of crappy now. Like I just brought this whole thing up. Like I've been trying to hide this thing for a while or not remember it. And I started getting anxious and depressed. I was, you know, having nightmares. And, you know, I've had a couple of those crazy dreams where, you know, things are going on and I've driven down the road for miles, like thinking I was in a war zone. And I was like actually just driving down the road on I-95. And so I've had these like things happen to me. And 2 weeks later, I get back on a call with her and she's like, how you doing? I was like, you know what? I feel like crap, right? Like I'm having trouble sleeping. I got anxiety. Like things are going not good for me. And she's like, and I'm trying to quit drinking too. So if you guys think about it, I had been masking a lot of these symptoms of some sort of fairly significant psychological trauma that I had and, you know, wouldn't dare say to any of my friends or anybody, or I would just mask it with alcohol. And I think that was like a coping mechanism. And then when you're deployed, you're so busy that like, you know, you're just running and gunning, dude. Like there's nothing, you don't have time to think about things.
You're
thinking about
anything.
Yeah, you're not processing stuff. So like once you start slowing down and you start retiring, all that stuff catches up to you. And, you know, I tell her this and she's like, oh, don't worry about it. I can help you. And Zoloft, right? So now I'm on these medications. Zoloft.
Where did you find this lady?
Wellbutrin. And I think that's the problem. Like, she's not a bad person, but she was like, she did want to help me, but like so quickly they go to pharmaceuticals like right away. And that's like that's the VA answer, in my opinion.
It's a quick fix.
It's the quick fix. Yeah. And it's the pushed by whatever. You can get in all sorts of, you know, conspiracy theories with pharmaceutical companies and all that. But for whatever reason, you know, like you're out, you know, like take these things, almost become docile is kind of what I relate it to. So now I'm taking these medications and I'm still struggling. So now I'm taking these medications and every once in a while I'm drinking because I'm falling off the wagon. And then I'm also like something I'd picked up from being younger and seeing alcoholism around was lying, right? So now I'm lying to my girlfriend. Like we weren't even fiance. I think maybe we were engaged at the time, but Brittany, like I'm lying to her because I'm like, I made the big mistake. And I say this to people that are trying to get sober, like change the people that you're around and change your environments that you go to until you're strong. Like if you're trying to stop drinking, don't go to a bar, right? And if you have your friends around you, like be very careful because to me, there's like two types of people in this world. There's anchors and there's beacons. And I always like, I'll go real quick into this, but I always imagine your life as like this, you're on a ship and you've got like God's calling for you is like out there way in the ocean. It's like nighttime, right? So like, cause you don't quite know where you're being called to, but you have these like anchors in your life and your anchors are there. They'll keep you stable, but you're not going anywhere, right? They're keeping you from your purpose and your calling. And while they may feel good and comfortable at the time, like you have to cut them loose because you got to start going towards your calling. And then there's this other side of people, which are beacons that are people that are out there that are like on their mission and purpose. And they're like a shining light and they like illuminate your path. And, you know, you may be crossing paths with them while they're going off to whatever their destiny or mission in life is, but they help you along the way and they don't have to be in your life the whole time, but they're part of with you. And as you start moving forward, people converge with you that are along the same path and purpose and you guys can work together. That's the way I always think of it. So I had a lot of anchors in my life. And when I really think about it, like I was fun, dude, like going out and drinking, like it was fun and I'd buy everybody drinks. And like, you know, like there was people out there that just wanted me around just because I was fun. And then a lot of them initially went into like, oh, you're changing for this woman. This is what'll happen. I'm telling you, like people are
try to
going
guilt
sober.
you.
Yeah. Like your friends, they're not your friends, dude. Like they're anchors in your life. Like they aren't your friends. Like they have the ability to become your friends. But when you tell someone like you're making a major life decision and I expect your support on this, like don't go around and talk crap about that person behind their back and this girl's like changing him and blah, 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 blah. Like I'm trying to go do something and you have no idea like my mental state and what's going on inside of me. Like be supportive, right? And I had a lot of people that weren't that way and I had to cut them out of my life. And what's super interesting about that too is, you know, the best way to like show somebody real change is time. And years later, it usually takes about 3 to 5 years, these same people that I let go of, they start reaching back out.
Yep.
And a lot of them are in my Heal the Heroes program now, right?
Wow.
So like they see that change because they want it, but you got to change. They got to see somebody do it. So if not for you, like, you know, for other people, go out and be a better version of yourself. And, you know, I'm not saying like everybody has to go sober, but if that's a vice that's stopping you from your mission and purpose in life, get rid of it. And it's going to suck at first. But
yeah, and that can manifest itself in a lot of ways too. Like we've experienced that a little bit with the business world and entrepreneurial journeys. Like we have kind of taken steps forward in a business sense, in a personal growth sense, not necessarily as critical to your health as alcohol, but we have kind of gone down a journey there, and that has caused us to like leave some of our other friends. I don't say behind, but like we have taken steps that make us feel disconnected from other friends in our lives, and sometimes it does manifest itself as like not in a positive way. Like there's some tension there and some pushback from friends who don't understand what you're doing, what you're going through. So yeah, I mean I can understand a little bit, not necessarily on the health side, but yeah, it makes sense.
no, yeah, it completely. Like you guys are trying to do, like you're not just starting a business, but you have like a force for good business. Right? You guys are. There's nothing wrong with making money in this world, especially if you want to redeploy some of that money and help people out, which I thank you guys so much for supporting Aerial Recovery. We just got to sign, you know, a memorandum of agreement earlier to work together. So it's really great. But there are those people that like, whether it's jealousy or they don't want to move forward or whatever it is, like they just will talk crap about you and to all these people behind your back. And, you know, and it sucks. Like it, especially for people that care about people. You know, and I know you guys are that way. Like you wouldn't do what you do if you weren't. And for me and a lot of people that are, you know, military, like loyalty is like huge, right? Because some of these people that I'm like cutting loose are people that like have been deployed with me, right? Like we've been through some crap together, but I can't, for where I'm going, like there's no room for them that way. And then on the other side of things, like I talked about intentional conversations with like purposeful conversations with people in rooms and stuff like that. If you start really talking about things that are important to you, you'd be surprised. There's some people that'll turn their head and be like, oh, dude, like, yeah, like I was thinking about this, and this. And you're like, what? You read, you know, like Outwitting the Devil, you know, Napoleon Hill. Like there's people will surprise you too. So like you really got to communicate
They
on
start
those
to
different
gravitate
levels.
towards you.
Yeah, they will gravitate. Like, and maybe they just were waiting for you to, you know, for someone to talk about that type of stuff too. So you can inspire, and then you could create these whole new like little groups. And there's a lot of people in this world that are doing great things. They just tend to like stick with other people that are doing great things because that's the type of supportive community and network that you need to really grow and expand in something good. And, you know, the same way I would imagine is, you know, bad guys hang out with bad guys, right? Like there's bad guys doing bad things. Good people need to do good things. It's kind of the same thing, you know? So I went through that season of my life where, you know, now I'm trying to quit drinking. I'm taking these prescription medications, and I go out in November of 2020. I go and Hurricanes Eta and Iota hit Honduras. Honduras is a really big special place in my life, and go out there and I get to, you know, serve and do all this. It was a great operation. We go help these people who have been cut off from these huge floodings, and you know, on Thanksgiving Day, I remember I delivered like 10,000 pounds of aid to this community that had been completely cut off. We had to take a helicopter to scout it, like a vehicle to a boat, like 2 hours on this river. Like it was like a legitimate recon and actual, you know, conducting a mission. It was very, very special forces like. And when I got back from there, I was really happy about what I had done, right? And then I came back and I ended up my now wife, she was out doing something amazing somewhere, and I was back in Nashville. And at this point, I'd been like learning from her community. I'd bought my first house. I was putting renovations into it. It became a realtor. Like, if you know anything from this podcast, become a realtor if you're not a realtor. Like, it's super easy. And even if it's you're selling your own house, like, just sell that thing, make some money or whatever, buy a new house. But it's just, there's all these little hacks that you can do that you can make some money. And, and I was in the stock market. Like, I had just really like changed my life around for the good, but I fell back into that with my old friends, right? And they're not bad people. They're just at like a different objective in life, right? And we go out shooting, and then after we got done shooting, I got to a point where they're gonna go listen to music, and I was like, oh, I'll go listen to music a little bit, right? And then go to listen to music and go over to one of their houses, and the next thing we're down on Broadway. And for those of you who know Nashville, if you're trying to get sober, don't go to Broadway. Number one place to not go to. And then I wake up the next morning at like, I say morning, it's probably like 10 a.m. or something. Like, I had a duplex that I'd bought. I was on the downstairs, like face down with like no recollection of anything from like 9 p.m. forward. And I was like, oh man, right? And this, mind you, this is probably the fourth time that I had told Brittany that I was going to be sober. And, her not telling me to, but I was telling her I have to, right? And I was at that point where I was like, if I do it again, like, you don't leave me, I'll leave you. Like, all these, like, nobody better salesperson than an addict. And so, I wake up and I'm like, this is it, dude. Like, I messed up real bad, right? So I take a look at, I look at my phone, and, sure enough, like, I'll be like the one man going and go running, fighting anybody. Like, I don't care. But like, such a coward, dude. Like, I don't even want to look at the text messages from the person that loves me. Like, it's kind of pathetic when I think about it, but that's how I was, right? And I'm like, oh man, I really messed up. And, there's these messages there, and she's pissed. And other people are trying to get a hold of me too, because it was very well known that I was trying to get sober. And like, even the people I was out with the night before were checking on me, like, because I said they're still good people. Like, they didn't, just wanted I'd fund Jeremy back. But so I get, I look at this phone, man, and this is December 6th, 2020. And I'm like, dude, that's it. Like, this is it, dude. That's over. Like, aerial recovery's done. She's done. The military is done. Like, I'm about to retire. Like, what am I supposed to do now, right? And for like the longest time, granted, I'm drunk and I'm still on these meds. So I'm like, not even like me. I'm like 4 versions of me removed is kind of the way I look at it. And, as any good Green Beret, I had a suicide plan, like a contingency plan. I'm not saying Green Berets have suicide plans, but we have contingency plans. And one of mine was suicide. So I was like, that's it. I'm going to do it. And,
Before you had looked at the text messages.
Yeah, before, because I hadn't read them, right? Like, I looked at, you can get the little previews. I looked at them, I was like, it wasn't good. And so I had my Glock 19, I leave it in my side table. And I sat up on the bed, and I took the Glock out, and my plan was to have my cleaning kit out, and I have not just alcoholism, but I have a history of mental health issues with my family too. So people close to me have struggled with suicide attempts and that sort of deal. So I was like, if I kill myself, this person will kill themselves. Like, that's what I was thinking, right? So I was like, I'm gonna make it look like an accident, whatever. Maybe it would, but that was my thought process. I was gonna act like I was cleaning my pistol, and I was gonna shoot myself in the femoral artery in my left leg. And then, I've seen those bleeds. Like, it'll suck at first, but I'll lose a lot of blood pretty quick, especially if I'm not putting pressure on it. And then, I'll lose consciousness and slip away. So it won't be too bad. And at that point in my life, I heard another veteran telling me about this in the Heal the Heroes program. He said, for him, like, imagine yourself walking through a desert, and it's like day 2, and you're walking, you're thirsty, you're tired, you're hungry, you're sunburnt, and like, you come up to like an oasis, and you can step into there, and someone hands you like a nice cold glass of water with ice cubes in it, and you take like the desire to drink that glass of water is the desire to kill yourself. It's like that compelling. And I was at that point where it wasn't like a longing like that, but I was at like peace. And I hadn't been like really at peace with anything in my life in so long. And I was like, I felt good, dude. Like, and I was done some good things, but I never really felt good inside. And I was like, in my mind, I was like, this is the answer. Like, I'm going to do this. And I feel really good about it. Like, I was pumped.
No anxiety, no, not scared of anything.
No, I was ready, man. Like, and
I feel like everything just came crashing down. Like, besides the text messages,
it was like crashing, but it was like almost, I don't know, like I wanted to do it. Like, all my problems would be solved. And it eliminates the fear, like that rational fear of preserving yourself is gone. You know, you see people that jump off of bridges and yourself or a building. You're like, how the heck does someone do that? I know how they do it because they want to. Like, you really want to do it. Like, there's no fear there because it's gone, and that's the answer to all of your problems. So it just seems
you didn't see
simple.
any way out. It was just like this was the way out. Like,
that was it.
Yeah.
Only thing.
Wow.
And I sat there and you know, I had the weapon. I had it pressed up against my leg, and I was thinking like, oh, do I want to do it really close? I was trying to feel for a pulse, and I was like, oh, no, I'll do it back a little bit right here. I was thinking, those are the thoughts I was thinking, right? And two things happened that day. One, I had bought this Great Dane puppy. His name was Captain, and that was my present to Brittany for Christmas. And in my drunkenness, when I came home, I must have let him out. I have no memory of this, but I didn't put him back in his little cage in the kitchen, you know, and I didn't close and lock my bedroom door, which I always do. I'm very like security conscious. And I had left it to where it was like almost closed. So it's like partially, like hadn't latched. And while I was sitting there with the pistol there, my finger on the trigger, like gauging which distance I want to do it at, you know, like the door pushes open and I look over and this little 8-week-old Great Dane like looks at me and comes over and sits down like at my feet and is looking up at me, and I'm like holding this gun, and I'm like, oh, dude, I can't do this right now with this little puppy right here. So I'm like, all right, I put the gun down. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna put this dog in the bathroom. So I go and put the dog away, and then I'm walking back, and I'm like, all right, you know, and I still had the nerve, like I was still ready to do this, but now I started thinking logistics, and so my mind is going somewhere else, and I was like, all right, someone needs to take care of this dog. Like, I don't care about me, but I forgot about the dog a second ago. But the dog someone needs to, who knows how long it'll take him to get me. Like, you know, someone needs to watch this dog. So now I'm thinking of like, who in my phone, and what an asshole thought for me to have, who in my phone of my friends can I text to come check on the dog, but there's a chance that they could find my dead body right in the bedroom, right? So now I'm thinking, well, do I want to put that on? Who do I want to put that on? Right? So that's where my thoughts are going now. And I'm like, dang, dude, like, that would suck if this person saw it. Maybe this guy. Like, so now I'm thinking that. So then I pick up my phone and I'm going to text him. And then I look at it and I have a message from Brittany. And this message was the second thing that saved my life there. First was the dog, and then this was the message. And it was so interesting to me because she had every reason in the world to be super pissed at me. Like, who knows what I was doing? Who knows if I was with somebody? Like, you know, all these thoughts that go through your head when someone goes off and does something unexpected and your worst fears come to mind. And she's, you know, we'd experienced a lot of different things as I was trying to get sober in our relationship that made things difficult. Me lying and, you know, texting other women and all this sort of stuff, like just stuff I wasn't proud of, but these are the thoughts that are going through her mind. But she has like the maturity to come with a message to me. And I still have this message, and essentially what it says is like, I know we may not be able to be together, but I know that you are hurting and you're struggling, and I love you and I want to help you. And so it was a message like, it wasn't even committing that we're going to be together, but it was a message of like, she recognized that I was like, I have something wrong, right? There's something wrong. And I'd been trying, but like, she was going to be supportive in whatever capacity that was. I remember like looking at that phone, dude, and like it hit me like a ton of bricks, man. Like I just started crying. I like put it down. I like put the gun down. I was like weeping, sitting there because I was seconds away from killing myself. And that for me was that bottom moment, the catalyst of the real understanding of change that I needed to make personally for me. on December 6, 2020. That was the last day I drank the night before. So I've been sober since then. And that's what it took me, man. Like, for me personally, like that stuff can get a hold of you. And it's not just that, you know, it's all sorts of prescription medications. I know a lot of people that are like hooked on those, and you know, hard drugs in general, pornography, whatever the escape is, you know. And I saw a really interesting therapeutic technique recently, and I just feel like sharing this because I thought it was super interesting. There's a lot of these symptoms, you would call it, like these bad things that manifest from you, whether it's alcoholism, you know, like failed relationships, whatever these things that you might think of as negative things that come out of a traumatic event or a series of traumatic events. But if you really think about those, we actually visualized someone in our program going through a memory of when they were a little kid. And we grabbed people that are in our program, and this doctor had us like acting out different people inside of the memory, like the father, the mother, talking to the younger version of them. And then you brought in these negative, like promiscuous, drinking, whatever these negative attributes are that have arisen from that memory and surrounded the little kid. And then like, as the yelling got more or whatever, those would come in closer. And then you ask the little kid, like, how do you feel? Well, I feel protected. So those were like a tool used naturally by you to like protect yourself. So like, while it sucks, you may not be proud of it. Like, don't have the shame. Like it's a mechanism that your mind and body is creating to protect you from traumatic events. So you've got to work on this stuff. And I've been doing that like ever since. And we're in the Heal the Heroes program. We have over 200 heroes in our program, and I'm affectionately known as like Hero One, right? Like, the aerial recovery in that program is based off of my real life struggles. And every day for me is like, most of them are better now. Like, I always tell everyone, like, trending up, man. Like, if you're trying to quit drinking, you know, do 30 days. If you drink once, that's fine, dude. You went 30 days, one step back, you're going in the right direction, right? Like, don't let that ruin all of the progress that you made. Like, make those steps in a positive direction, whatever that is that you need to change in your life. And that's kind of where the Heal the Heroes program came from, was like helping people out. It may seem like they have it all together, but behind the scenes, you know, there's struggles that you're going through, and let's build a community around you that can talk to you about it and relate to you, and then give you some opportunities and people to talk to, and really let them feel safe, and you can talk about anything, like in our group, right? And then on the opposite side of that too, like when you're feeling up to it, and you know, now you can come out and do these disaster relief missions with it. Hurricane Helene, like at one point at Hurricane Helene, I remember counting around the room. I think there was like 13 members of our Heal the Heroes program on the team there at one time, like serving, you know, and it was really, and using that skill set that they made whatever job they have now, but they had that itch, like, because we're freaking protectors. And that's the thing. Like, I get sick and tired of people saying like, you've done enough, right? You fought for your country, like, take a knee, relax, like, you've earned it. Like, no, like, God makes certain people in this world that protect other people.
It's a lifelong journey.
It is a lifelong journey, and you can redirect it, and you don't have to be 100% deployed to Afghanistan all the time. But
you can transition from one to another.
You can transition. If that's making an awesome company that helps other people out, like, right, do something for good and go back in. And I call it your purpose smile. And this is like a good technique. Well, how do I figure out what my purpose is? I go through, everyone's got a million freaking pictures on their phone, right? I scroll through and I can find, like, I've got like my normal smile, like, hey, you know, but then I've got like this big, super cheesy, like, you know, 7-year-old at Chuck E. Cheese smile when you're a kid, like this big, like, like, and there's moments of me like in Bahamas and Honduras, and I'm looking at these kids, like, and I'm serving, and I have like the biggest, dumbest, cheesiest smile on my face. It's like my purpose smile. So I always tell people, like, go through and look at that, hang around with those people around you at that time, and recreate those types of environments. What were you doing? Right.
Yeah,
and
that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, it leads to your purpose.
Just seeing where you're happiest, where you're the most passionate. I love it.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, so on that day when you almost took your life, do you feel like, I don't want to get too religious, but do you feel like that was act of God? Do you feel like through the dog, through Brittany, do you credit God with kind of taking a step there?
I very much do. Yeah. I believe God was there looking out and protecting me. Because, you know, if I would have done that, Yeah, let's look at the timeline. That was December 2020. In February of 2021, I was still active, but I was already retiring. Like, my work didn't make me come to work or anything. I was on the island of BVI, and we had a group of anti-traffickers. This was Tim Ballard and Operation Underground Railroad. They were trying to expand in the Caribbean. Everything's closed, you know. So a mutual friend of ours is an associate with like Tony Robbins, and like they knew him, like told them about us, and you know, my wife's passion for that and everything. So they came out, and this is like 2 months later, and while they're out there and we're talking to them, they get a picture from this Ugandan police officer who at like a random traffic stop had opened up a duffel bag, and there was the severed heads of 4 children in there. And in Uganda, like child sacrifice is a really big deal. Like 3 out of every 10 kids that go missing, at least at that time, were victims of child sacrifice. And this is like dismemberment of body parts and burying them to like for blessing businesses and stuff. It's crazy. And that's why I talk about evil. But after we got that picture sent to us, 48 hours later, I was in Uganda, like hunting down this witch doctor with the police out there and the Operation Underground Railroad folks. And it was like, you know, and I remember there was this, I got the opportunity to go to an aftercare center, which is where, you know, the victims go, the survivors go after whatever terrible things has happened to them. And there was this little girl there, her name was Hope. And I was sitting there playing with the kids, and normally what I do now with anti-trafficking, you know, we pose a lot of times as like bad guys to go find bad guys, right? Like, so if we ever interact with victims, they usually see us as bad guys, right? Because they don't, we're just pretending, right? But I actually got a chance to go to this aftercare center. It was like life-changing for me because there's this little girl there, her name's Hope, and she's like laying down and she's in the fetal position. She can like barely move, and she's like, you know, kind of like her eyes are all over the place and stuff. And I'm talking to the curator there, and I was like, you know, what's the deal with her? And she said, well, she was taken when she was young. I think it was, I don't remember the age, like 3 to 5 years old or something. She was kidnapped. She was held in a room for years, and they would take a machete and cut her open, and like in the back of the neck, she had all these scars and head and everything. And then they would collect the blood that came out of her and then use the blood for these like ceremonies. And it has to be like charged, right? So you can't just like take it from the vein. It's got to be like a physical traumatic thing, the way that their voodoo or crap works. It's disgusting. And she now is unable to like move or any of this stuff. It messed her up before she was rescued. And I remember sitting there thinking like, dude, like, this is unbelievable. Look at this little beautiful girl. She's like 13 at this point, just laying there in a fetal position. She's like this little Ugandan, like her whole future in life, for the most part, is just completely robbed of her for these evil, satanic, whatever you want to call it, rituals. And I do this thing sometimes, like when I feel compelled, I don't know if it's like God, like whatever, but I go and like I sing, and I'm a terrible singer, but I started like singing to her. And I remember she like looked and made eye contact with me and had this like giant smile on her face. And her name is Hope, right? And I was like, dude, like I'm supposed to be here. Like I can go help her and people like her. Like thank you, God, right? For saving me and then showing me and affirming where I need to be and making me, even though I went that low, understanding these are the things I personally need to get rid of to be able to go help and provide hope for little kids like Hope.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it was a crazy, like one of those, you know, like those.
It's like an epiphany moment, basically.
Yeah, it was incredible, and that's led to the, you know, we've rescued over 8,000 people and hundreds in anti-trafficking, you know, many more with the relief, especially with the Ukraine missions and all of that. And all of that would have been gone if I would have just let that voice get to me, and the one that it tricked me, you know. And you can be the toughest warrior in the world, but you can only be as strong as you are to yourself, right? Like you can be your own worst enemy. And some people, or they're hard as nails, they themselves are the ones that take themselves out. Yeah.
Well, let's dive into a little bit with Heal the Heroes, because it sounds like mental health is very important to you, and that's a lot of what you guys are doing there. Let's walk us through like what that is and how you guys are doing what you're doing there.
Yeah. I mean, the program's evolved a lot. It started with a retreat on the island. The first platoon we did in partnership with a good friend of ours, Dr. Clay Louder, and he's got an amazing organization called Winners Travel, and he provides these like healing retreats for people that really deserve them. You know, like, and there's a lot of people deserving, but veterans especially is what he chooses. Veterans, caretakers, nurses, that sort of thing. And so we had created the Heal the Heroes event, and it was a 5-day retreat. And we went out there, and I remember actually showing up like 2 days into it. I was on another undercover mission, and really like sitting down and talking to the guys. There was this group called the Big Red Barn that was there. I think those are their names, but they do their veterans group as well that helps with post-traumatic stress and stuff like that, and they curate these sort of events. And we learned a lot from them, but it got to a point where, you know, no matter how big you build that fire and like energy and get people all pumped up, like if you don't provide fuel to it, it's going to eventually die out. So, you know, we have a chat going, and then like a week, 2 later, like less chats, less messages, blah, 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 blah. So kind of like everybody goes back home and gets back into their normal stuff. So we're like, man, you know, Jeremy, it took you about like a freaking year to even like come to your senses, you know, like maybe we need to extend this thing. So that's what we try to do with it now is, you know, we extended it to a year-long program. So you do the retreat, and then you do a 12-week mentorship, which my wife and I lead that one. And it's all about like helping you find what your mission, doesn't have to be your recovery work, whatever you feel like your calling on your life is. And then backwards planning from there, and then building the tools to align your life and your network and all that stuff to get to that point. So that's what the 12 weeks is about. And then you go into 9 months of integration into a mastermind. Right now it's G4, so we're always kind of evolving things, but basically a community of people that are successful entrepreneurs, other members from the program that want to help you, and they can more tangibly help you grow this plan that you just created. And then you can come through trainings and go do like missions with us and all that sort of stuff after like disaster relief, and those that are up for it, like the anti-trafficking sort of deals. And we build these task forces. So we're trying to provide opportunity for the members in the program. And, you know, it changes a lot. We're doing our best with it. You know, it is very difficult to work with veterans and first responders that are struggling, because they're struggling, right? Like, but it's super rewarding, man. It's like the hardest and easiest thing to do.
What's the selection process like? Is it like people just apply through a website, or is it like you get recommended specific people?
Yeah, you go on to, if you go to aerialrecovery.org, we have the initiatives on there. You could go to Heal the Heroes, and there's a place on there that you can nominate or sponsor. It's $15,000 for the year, the way we have it now. But you can recommend anybody. Like anybody can go on there and recommend. And then we have a little panel that goes through and takes a look at the nominees. So if you are going to recommend somebody, please go on there. It can be, first responders, police, EMT, firefighters, nurses, any of those, and military veterans. Doesn't have to be special operations, any military. And just be we don't share it with anybody, so just be very clear on why you're recommending them, because that's kind of our selection is like based on the need. And then what I'm really proud of, though, too, is a lot of our recommendations that come in, I'd say probably like over half of them, maybe even 60 to 70%, they're recommended by members that are currently in it. So like Platoon 5 will recommend somebody that they know. So like, to me, that shows that they buy into the program. And just like with anything else, man, I tell people, like, feed the hungry. Like you have to invest in yourself. So we're not trying to sugarcoat and hand things out to people, but we're trying to be able to provide opportunity and open doors for you, but you then got to step through it. So if you're not willing to work, don't come to the program. But if you are willing to put some work in, and you've put work in the past, come to the program. Like that's the people that we want. We want freaking loyal people, hardworking, that are out there to do something good in this world. And we're trying to get, like I said, we got over 200 members now. We just did our 10th platoon. And, we do anywhere from This last one, we're kind of trying to like a smaller one, but we do anywhere from 10 to 25, usually more like 23 to 25 members of the program. And we've got, really good success rate. A lot of people that have done very well for themselves. We provide opportunities like in stock market, learning about that sort of stuff and things that you don't really think we can learn, right? But we can, because it seems so alien to you. Like I remember getting out, I was like, what, like taxes? Like what the heck? What do you mean? What is this tax form, right? It's not the easy form, right? So there's all these things, but we try to help people like navigate through that and just make them understand that they're freaking warriors and like your mission in life is not over. Like you've got the skill sets. Now let's apply those skill sets to what you've got to do in the future. And that's really kind of what the program's about.
What percentage would you say, I guess, in terms of the people that go through the program end up going on to mission trips and like disaster zones, or even to, like you said, you're hunting a witch doctor and the child trafficking, like are a lot of them involved with those, or most of them like, get back on their feet, they change their life around and then they just assimilate back to civilian life?
I think we have both, but I would say probably, so we've had 200 members come through. I don't know. I'd say maybe like 40 or so, like have come and done trips, maybe a little bit more than that with us. But we're also a growing organization too, right? Like we have a new partnership with like a group called Global Empowerment Mission. It's an amazing group right out of here in Miami, and they do a lot of humanitarian disaster relief stuff. And they see the value of having a quick and flexible group like us that can come in the first week or two of a disaster and like build relationships real quick and identify places in need. And then they can bring over their aid, because they bring like ships full of aid over, right? They're a big org. Like, I don't know, you can look at their 990s, really big organization, amazing. Michael Capone, wonderful, their founder. And so that's a new opportunity for us. Like we just had the Miramar earthquake, and we sent 2 members out there to help Global Empowerment Mission out. One of them was a hero, and the other one was an amazing supporter that we met, entrepreneur that's now our highest level of trained person, who also mentors our heroes, right? So we really build those together.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a lot of opportunities among the different things going on there. And I was going to ask too, you have aerial development group. Do a lot of people go through the heroes, and then if they're a veteran or have certain skill sets, they go on to the aerial development group? Is that kind of like a process, like a path there?
Those aren't super connected.
Okay,
like as we grow things out, we have the resort on the island as well. Like we're trying to build forces for good, right? And we have Redemption Ranch is like our animal rescue initiative that's out on the island too, and we have plans to like bring in heroes to be kind of like interns there and learn equine therapy, that sort of stuff. So we're still relatively new, right? Like this thing kicked off in 2021, and we've been to like, I personally have probably been to 25 countries or something since 2001, and like filled my passport up super quick. And but like our core team is small, but our volunteers are bigger. And as we grow, there's always that season of expansion, contraction, expansion, contraction. These are things that I'm learning now. It's a nonprofit world, but it is a business, right? You've got your income is donations. You've got to keep your donors happy. Those are your customers, essentially, right? And then your impact, what you do, that's your product. So we want to put out an excellent product. We have, unfortunately, we've worked with some people that are still working through issues themselves, and we're always going to be supportive, and we have some turnover sometimes, but trying to provide opportunities for people. But some people just aren't ready yet, and I can't fault them. It gets to be difficult because you do get close to people, but we're doing our best to just, have as much impact as we can. And we really see ourselves growing, especially in the anti-trafficking space. We're talking with all sorts of government agencies we work with, like just had meetings in Lyon, France with Interpol.
So how does that work exactly? Because I'm definitely interested in how your organization is able to go into other countries. Like, do you have to get, I don't even know if this is the right language, but certifications or anything to allow you guys to go in? Because obviously we have CIA, and they could like just go into other countries and change regimes and do all the stuff that they do. When it comes to what you guys are doing and literally trying to take down traffickers and predators and all these people. What do you have to do in terms of governments to be able to go in there and say, look, this is what our group is doing. We're going undercover. We're trying to talk to these people, trying to infiltrate gangs or whatever, however they communicate with each other when they traffic people. Can you just like walk through? I mean, obviously you can't say everything, but can you walk through like what that process would be like when you do something like that?
Yeah, I think it's really reputation based, right? You're not going to get an audience at the headquarters of Interpol without like a good reputation and good relationships. So, our anti-trafficking department, the head of it is a former HSI agent. Like I think he's got 36 years law enforcement background. Was very high up in HSI working Homeland Security investigations. They're the primary U.S. governmental organization that goes overseas to find Americans mainly that are doing bad stuff in other countries. So he comes in, a lot of relationships, that he's carried throughout his career, and then we built our team in that aspect, right? So we have the credibility behind it. We've got all of our audits, like all that, because you don't work with these groups without them like checking your backgrounds extensively, right? So once you have that and we can show the successes, and these are the places that we work, here's an example of a memorandum of understanding, because we won't go in and do any work unless we're approved to be there. And a lot of it is for our own protection, right? Like if I'm out trying to find a trafficker and I say the wrong thing and an actual good cop is like paying attention to what I'm saying around, I might find myself in a Mexican prison or something, right?
Right.
Like,
That's
no,
what
I was just trying to help you.
Yeah.
So we have agreements in place with, usually it's like attorney generals or, prosecutors' offices, military, and some of these other countries. Just depends on who the appropriate governing agency is. And then we work for them. So we don't, we help them and with small grants to get missions accomplished. And a lot of times they know where bad guys are, but they don't have the money to travel out there and do a 4-day investigation, which costs $400 or something.
Right. Yeah. Because they're all developing countries.
Yeah,
they
they
can't
don't
afford
have the
to do
budget.
this. Right.
And then themselves, they have giant hearts and good expertise, but they don't have the capability. They're not rich. They're
limited resources. They can't allocate those to be doing things like this that you guys have the ability to do.
Exactly. So we provide, here's some trainings we can help you on. Here's the way that we can assist you. And then a lot of these countries, there's tourists that come specifically for sex tourism, right? And sex with minors. So they'll travel from the United States, European countries, wherever, and they think that they can get away with this stuff in these other countries. And due to, you can go all day talking about this, but economic problems, cultural differences, all these things, there's opportunity, and a lot of times the parents will know what the child's doing or sell their kid to be able to feed the other kids, right? They're just in completely different scenarios. So those police officers in that country don't look like the clientele. So then we can operate under their supervision as essentially confidential informants, where we'll go out and pretend to be, these sex tourists or whatever we make up. And then we will actually conduct the meetings with the traffickers and then help them build a case. So it's really in depth. And I think a lot of the countries we go to, they have great hearts, and they want to see it end, and they're very open to us coming out there and helping, especially after they look into us and have seen all the places that we've worked already. And we have a documentary coming out, and it's called The Hidden War. It's going to come out on about July 4th of 2025, and that really showcases that whole spectrum. It is a case that started from the Netherlands, that this guy goes there, he gets convicted, and he travels away before his trial because his passport's not taken due to their laws, goes to Mexico. He's a child predator. I hate even calling them predators, but he's a pedophile. And he's a political activist for the legalization of sex between adults and children. That should be their choice, trying to attach to the LGBTQ, all this. It's crazy. And he goes out there, and the cops in the Netherlands know where he is, but they won't tell the Mexican authorities because they're concerned for his human rights if he gets arrested in Mexico. So we ended up getting this case through one of our partners, and he was trying to set up a sex hotel for Ukrainian refugees, so like trafficked Ukrainians. And we were in Ukraine, so we ended up like pulling Ukrainian that we were work with out. I trained them in Hungary on undercover operations. They flew to Mexico, did a sting against this guy, got him, found his lieutenants in another country in Ecuador. They were building another place like that, and there's a whole group of community out there that they were already preying upon, and like 500 kids that were in a very difficult situation because of an earthquake that had happened in the mid 2010s. And so they were already at this economic disadvantage. That's where these guys go. Like they go to where they feel like they can give money and the community won't say anything because they're providing, right? So we were able to take that down. Now we support that community. So it's a really cool depiction of how the disasters work into the anti-trafficking and then how big and sophisticated these networks can be.
Do you see that here in the U.S. as well? Do you see that type of thing happening even to some extent, even if a lesser extent, like in North Carolina after the hurricanes come through? Is that something that happens even here in the U.S.?
Absolutely. I mean, like one of the biggest human trafficking event in the U.S. is the Super Bowl. And we get people that, give us through different tips and ways to get hold of us.
You said the Super Bowl?
Super Bowl is a huge trafficking event in the U.S.
Wow.
I mean, you just think about it.
Why is that?
You have a ton of people that travel from all over the world, or not the world, yeah, probably the world, to one specific location. They're there away from their families, whatever, and to attend an event. So they'll bring in, strippers or people that will come to their hotel rooms or prostitutes. And like these prostitutes, there's people that control them to go there. So traffickers will bring them there and force them.
That's how they make the money off of.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's very prevalent in the United States. The United States is where a lot of the money is. That's why that border was such a big issue. There's these kids are undocumented children are coming into our country. I don't care what freaking political side you're on. Like we have unaccompanied minors entering our country. Like nobody's looking out for them, and we can't track them once they get in, right? So that's a breeding ground for trafficking, and these traffickers bring them from South America through Central America. This corridor, these caravans and all that stuff. Luckily, Trump is in office now and has closed that border off for the most part. But that's why that's such a huge deal, because just like drugs, right? Like humans, there's a corridor into the United States too, because a human being, unlike an 8 ball of cocaine lasts for only so long. A human being you can get to turn 10, 15, 20 tricks a day for 6 years or something before they're all used up, and then they'll, die of an overdose or whatever. They don't care about them. They're a product. But that's, a drug, it's a being that can keep producing.
And I remember you guys talking too about even if they are caught at the border, there's still scenarios where they can be sent, like we are facilitating sending them to traffickers.
Yeah, we were they'd stopped with the DNA testing, and luckily this isn't going on anymore, but you used to have to prove that you were related to the child to be able to pick it up and, pick this child up in the States. And that was, not the case. You have X amount of time to get them out of these holding centers. And, the media would come in and show we're caging children. We're trying to safeguard them from traffickers, right? There's got to be a process to take accountability for a young child, especially one that doesn't speak the language, it's come from nowhere, doesn't even know why they're there, they're separated from anybody that they know. The traffickers take them and use them, and there's absolutely a market for it. Child sexual abuse material, CSAM, that stuff is so prevalent in there. And you start looking up statistics on pedophiles, right? You're in an auditorium, the chances are I don't even remember what it is, 1 in 500 or something crazy. You have to look up the statistic, but there are a lot of people that are attracted to children. And, there's a Supreme Court case that's coming up now with even something as simple as age verification on pornographic websites, right? That There's an argument from the big porn industry. There's like one big porn company that owns all of the porn hubs and all that. There's like one big company, and they're lobbying now to like not have, it's a violation of the First Amendment to be able to require someone to show an ID, right, to watch that. But as you really get into pornography I really view that as like a gateway, right? Like you're looking at this woman or whatever your thing is, and then you like start seeing younger ones, right? And then now you're looking at the teen pornography, and now you're like thinking, well, you get into these chats and start talking to people, and they're like, oh, you can go to Mexico or these places and you can have sex with the teenagers. Oh, great. Oh, now you get out there. Oh, 18? Well, there's also 16-year-olds there, right? And now, like, so you go down this, there's these people that go down this path where it's like slowly seems accepted, and then they fantasize about it. It's disgusting is what it is. So we need a big cultural shift, because you talk about the predators and we're going after the traffickers, get the human traffickers, rescue the kids, right? Well, why do we have to do that in the first place? Because there's people that pay to go. It's basic economics, right? Supply and demand. There is a demand for a child to sleep with, like to have sex with. That's a demand. So we've got to go after our laws and make them tougher for the perpetrators that are going to do that.
Do you ever feel like you said 8,000 is the number that aerial recovery has saved?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you ever feel like I don't want to say sad, but like frustrated by the fact that it's still going on? Like you're going to work as hard as you can to stop as many as you can, but there's inevitably going to be some that slip through the cracks. Do you ever feel like disappointed by that, or like how do you look at that?
I'm very much on you guys know that old story about like the starfish. Have you guys heard that thing? So there's this.
Oh, throwing them out.
Yeah, right. Like the starfish that wash up on the beach. It's like one of those.
I care about that
stories.
one.
Yeah. The little kid's throwing them into the water, and then the old man's like, "What are you doing? There's millions of starfish out here. Like, why even bother?" Right? Well, it matters to this one, right? So that's really what it is. Like, it's like every life matters, and we would probably not get a lot of donations, but even if we only rescued one person in the last 5 years or whatever, but that's it matters to that one person and that one person's family, and that's really what it's about to me. Like, we will use our skill set to go help as many people as that is, and God will be the ones that guides us to that number.
Yeah, some is better than all, obviously.
Exactly. Yeah.
What percentage of what you guys do is abroad versus here in the U.S.? As far as I know, you do a lot of disaster relief as well. What percentage is kind of that split there?
I would say disaster relief wise, we do more in the U.S. A lot of hurricanes, tornadoes, sort of stuff, and so I'd say that's probably like 60-40 U.S. sort of stuff. But I mean, we've been all over Pakistan, Turkey, Tajikistan, a bunch of places in the Caribbean. We've been all over the place, but a lot in Florida, Louisiana with the hurricanes. Hurricane response is kind of like our bread and butter. And then with the trafficking, I would say like 90% is overseas and 10% is in the U.S. And mainly because there's like, you think about our services, like why would a cop that looks like me in the U.S. need me to go undercover in the U.S.? That doesn't really make sense. They're very much trained for it, but we do collaborate a lot with investigations and that sort of thing, especially working with Interpol, and we can go find, the laws are just different. Like, we can collect information about people, but you can't just like collect on American citizens, but we can go and do things that are legal to say maybe there's like a warrant for somebody and he was last seen in this area, but the resources of the police are stretched too thin, so they can't send the resources out to go look for this person. Like, we can go out and look for that person. If we find them, we can say, hey, go here. Like, you might see the person, right?
Yeah.
That sort of thing. So like, it's all within the laws of the U.S., and we work with them, and sometimes investigators will ask us can we check something out in Mexico related to a case that's, say, in the Pacific Northwest or something. So that's the partnership, because we're all have an end goal. And even if it's 2% of the operation to be able to have the outcome, like then we'll help provide about 2%. Or if it's 90%, we'll do the 90%. But it has to be a combined, coordinated effort, because the fact is human trafficking is a $150 billion a year industry, right? There's no way we have anywhere near that amount of money deployed against it. So we can't be bickering and arguing and trying to tear down other organizations. Like just do some work, partner with people, and let's see how we can help, and remove your ego. And I'll tell you this, like nonprofit space, dude, like there's so much ego in the nonprofit space. It's crazy to me. And, like donor shielding and don't take, all these things, but we really got to work together and collaborate, or we're not going to be able to accomplish any of this stuff.
I love it. Seems like you guys are doing a lot of good. We're very happy to be supporting you guys. Where can people find more information about aerial recovery and Heal the Heroes and all these groups?
Yeah, the best way is just to go to our website, aerialrecovery.org. We are a nonprofit. We operate off of donations. So if you got it in your heart and your ability to give, we help a lot of people, and we can help more people with that, provide more opportunities for our heroes. So if you just go on our website, you can donate, you can learn more about the organization, you can see all of our, audits and candids and all these things, vouching for us. And you can follow us on Instagram at Aerial Recovery Group and see the work that we're up to. But yeah, I really, appreciate the opportunity to be on the podcast, guys, and the partnership that we have. And I really appreciate anybody that feels called in their heart to support our organization or recommend somebody for our Heal the Heroes program so we can try to help them.
Absolutely. Thank you again for coming here, and we'll see you next time.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
It's a wrap. Sweet.
Cool.